This is your boy DJ Leon D, and on this channel we talk about travel, money, and lots of cooking. Three things I know quite a bit about. I'm not an expert at anything. Nope, not an expert. I've just been around a long time and know a lot. Let's get it on. Hello family, it's your boy DJ Leon D. I'm here to talk to you about the nightmare from hell trying to barbecue this past Memorial Day. I'm going to tell you something that's going to blow your mind. The Timberline I got, it could not keep up. Now, I'm going to show you some pictures. Me getting the food ready and the Timberline temperature gauge, it just could not keep up. Now, let me give you some information. It was about 65, 70 degrees. Memorial Day, it was a little on the cooler side. But actually, it was about 70 degrees. It was raining, but not very hard. And the wind might have been about 25 miles an hour. No, Timberline failed miserably. Now, this is a Timberline 1300. I've only had it a couple of years, and I've had a lot of other Traegers, but I have not seen anything this bad. Now, the funny thing is that I cleaned it probably early that week, a couple days before. Tested it, fired it up the day before I was going to smoke some food. Everything tended to look perfect. I cleaned it out with the vacuum cleaner. I did a whole lot of stuff. So I did that. I did the Woodridge, and I did my Pro 34. That's my baby there. So I had them all ready to go. I spent maybe 2 hours cleaning all three of them, but it was two, constant hours, constant hours. And I vacuumed, got all the ashes out, put a new drip tray in. I did all kind of stuff. So I'm ready to go. Man, first of all, I knew something was not right when it took about 30 minutes to get to the preheat temperature. Now, it takes longer than the other Traegers. And I debated about using that or stick with the Pro 780 and my Pro 34. I said, yeah, these right here, no matter what the temperature, no matter what, they work. Man, when it took 30 minutes, I said, something ain't right. But then it kicked in and did what it had to do. When I put it on 250, that didn't take very long to get there at all. Loaded up with meat, and I was just doing ribs because I had my Boston butts and my chicken on the other grills, smokers rather. So here's where the problem started at. As soon as the rain came down just a little bit, it could not maintain temperature like the other ones were. And I was kind of like, something's wrong. You know how when your wife mad at you and you know something's wrong, but she don't say anything and you can't figure out why she would be mad? And finally you just give up and say, what the hell, I'm glad she's mad. So I need this peace and quiet. But in this case, I had to figure out what was going on. And so I just said, maybe it's just taking its time getting to 250. Because it got around 225 and it just stayed there. And man, I'm looking at the Pro 34 and the Pro 780 over there. They're just humming along, cooking everything the way you're supposed to be doing it. The weather did not bother those two at all. And I'm sorry, my Woodridge. I was going to use the Pro 780, but I went with the Woodridge. So those two had no problems at all. But man, that Timberline, I'm looking, I'm like, man, it's taking a long time to get to 250. I felt like getting a hammer and just whacking the hell out of it and saying something ain't right. But I knew it was not an ash problem because Timberline has ashes problems. So I kind of knew what it was not. And then I stood outside and I had my temperature gauge, not for the meat, but for the weather outside. And when the wind picked up, I noticed the temperature started dropping. When the wind would go down, I noticed the temperature would go back up, but not 250. So I said, okay, I'll leave it 225, give it a couple minutes and see what happens. So I go inside, I come back, this damn thing on fire. On fire. And first of all, I knew it was a lot of smoke coming out. I'm like, man, it's a lot of smoke. It was on fire. I'm talking about like burning down a barn full of hay. It was on fire. So finally, and when it gets on fire, I put a little water there and it went right out. Nice smoke though. Nice smoke, but that's not how I wanted my smoke, because on my Timberline, I got a super smoke mode, and this exceeded anything that could do. So I go back outside, and then it gets near 250. It gets about 245, and it just stays there. I said, cool. I mean, it stays there for about a good hour. And now, so then I cranked it up to 275 just to see what would happen. Nope. Stayed right at 245 for the next hour. Didn't move, didn't bat an eye. But then the funny thing about it, that before I cook anything, people, I always top off my pellets. And now, mind you, I'm using Traeger pellets plus Pit Boss pellets, because Traeger pellets are very expensive for what you get. I have never seen it being worth the money by itself. But I wanted a certain flavor, so I added Pit Boss to it too. I primarily use Pit Boss pellets. So I was sitting there, and there's no way those ribs should take as nearly as long as a 14-pound Boston butt. And I was cooking 3 of them. 3 of them. I cooked 3 of them. I said, there's no way possible, because that's a thick piece of meat. And I started at the same time, and I noticed that when I was doing the internal temperature on the Boston butt and the ribs, they were about the same after like 3 hours cooking. I said, this isn't right. And now, I just happened to notice that. So me being patient with timers and everything else, I took the timers back in the house, because I said, I don't need them for the ribs because the Traeger taking forever. But then I went outside and I seen the temperature just fluctuating. I had no clue to what I was going to get at the end of the day. But me being a barbecueologist, I would get the ribs right. I just have to move them to a different grill or smoker if I have to. But I was determined to get them right. It just that then, it took a while. The harder it rained, the windier it got, the lot longer it took, and I burnt a shitload of pellets. I have never went through that many pellets before on anything. And I have the brisket overnight and didn't use that many pellets. And we only 4 hours into the cook. The ribs are nowhere near where they should be at. So I got the temperature gauge set for the Timberline, but I have no clue to what the temperature really is. I have no clue. And I was so paranoid about lifting up the cover. I was like, I'm not lifting the cover up, because that might take me 2 hours to get it back to 200 degrees. Who knows? But I'm not taking a chance. I'm just going to roll the dice and let them stick there, just let them do what they're going to do and use my probe. That's what I was doing. So now I got to cook all this chicken, and I was thinking the ribs be done in a few hours, 6 at the most. The ribs be done. I'll be ready to go. I did not have my day set for an 8.5-hour rib cook. I got it sitting at 300 degrees, which I've never done. And the temperature gauge is reading 249. It's reading 249. I'm talking about, it's not like I set it and think it's going to climb there, very, very quick. No, by this time I knew that it probably wouldn't get above 249. But I said, okay, ain't no problem. I then took out my Pro 780. I said, I got a lot of food to cook, and I don't have time to mess around with this shit today. I ain't got time for it today. So what I decided to do was that my neighbor was, we could see each other, and he was saying, hey, I'm doing some, he said, hey, I'm doing some ribs or some chicken. I got company coming over. He said, any tips? I said, yeah. Don't use a damn Timberline. That's my tip for you. Because you might be here till tomorrow morning, because I started about 5 hours before he did. My neighbor likes to start his cooks around 11 to 12 o'clock. He said he wants it when the sun comes out. Well, I said, well, it's going to rain all day. Get over it. And what makes it bad is that I had my Timberline under my umbrella. I got a huge umbrella that covered almost my entire 18 by 36 deck. I got a couple umbrellas I bought. That way it keep the sun off me. If it was a 4th of July or a 90-degree day, it keep the sun off me and stuff. And so, And my neighbor, he calls it a smoker. I call it a little ninja. I mean, it's a real small thing, but you know, he got a lot of pride in it. It takes him about 3 hours to cook one piece of chicken. But he don't know no better though. You know, he's not barbecuologist. He's just a guy who likes the idea and likes the mindset that I'm doing something manly, because he see a real man over there with these $7,000 or $8,000 worth of smokers over there, and I think he comes out just to look at me. I don't think he comes out to do anything in particular, because what he got over there, he ain't got enough to feed a cat. By the time he gets through done, he can't even feed a cat. And now me over here, I got a big boy. I can feed a football team with all my smokers, you know. But anyway, the Timberline just wasn't it day. You know, it just wasn't it day. Now, see, people tell you about the good and the bad. I tell you that on both sides. I tell you just the way it is. It was not the Timberline day. My Pro 780 came to the rescue. I got so tired of, after 5 hours messing around with the Timberline, I slapped the ribs and everything on the Pro 780. I was gone. Click, click. I was gone. The temperature climbed up, stayed there for the next 2 hours, and my ribs were done. Matter of fact, the Timberline was struggling so bad, I started feeling bad for it. It was struggling. I mean, real struggling. The Woodridge and the Pro 34, not a problem. It kind of reminded me when I used to have camp chefs, stackers. Man, those things, camp chef, it would climb to the temperature and it would just not really stay consistent. And the temperature it showed you was not the temperature that was inside. No. But I understood the camp chef because it was cheap and it was very thin. The doors were very, very thin. But, with the Timberline, that's the heaviest door, the heaviest gauge of steel that Traeger uses on any of his smokers. And so that's one reason I bought it. I'm like, this is the big boy. And be honest about it, on some of my other cooks, matter of fact, up until that particular time, I've never had a problem out of the Timberline. Never had a problem out of that Timberline. And so, it's just one of those things that this day was not his day. This day was not his day. And it was embarrassing because my Pro 34 is probably about 10, 11 years old. It's about 10, 11 years old. And I keep saying, how you waiting to buy a new one if the old one breaks? Well, that's not how I envision it. What I wanted to buy was a new Pro 34, not a new Timberline. And this the way this was going on this day. But now I know a whole lot more because, see, I didn't buy a smoker I can only use when the temperature outside is perfect, because I don't know what that perfect degree is to the Timberline. To me, anything above 45, 50 degrees, you should be ready to go to work. If you can't go to work, then, you should be ready to go to work. But this day, it decided it needed a vacation. And that's sad considering how much it cost. And there is nothing online or anywhere that could have told me how to solve my problem, because it was not going to get solved until I put everything on the Pro 780. It got solved real quick. But then it makes me leery about using it again, because I like the square inches that it can cover and the certain meats it can handle no problem at all. Now, saying that, I don't really use the top grill for hardly anything. But, speaking of, they tell you can put 9, 10, 11 slabs of ribs on a smoker. Nah, you can't put it on any pellet. No. Can't be done. Not unless you got them on top of one another vertically. Yeah. It won't be horizontal. But anyway, you gotta, I guess if you live in the South, you won't have these issues. But then again, you have hurricanes. Now, I don't see, well, then again, you got country boys. I can see them barbecuing in a hurricane. They smoking food while the hurricane's coming. I can see that. But up here, we don't quite do that when we know it's going to be, nasty. But Traeger don't put any restrictions on what kind of weather you can use their grills in. No. They don't come out and say, hey, it's got to be between 73 and 74 degrees for you to use it. They don't say that. But I think they ought to have that on the packaging, so people know if you ain't got 73 degrees, sunshine, wind of 0, feel free to use it. That's how, that's what they should be telling you. But no, they don't tell you that. But you figure that shit out when something goes wrong, or you burn up a whole bag of pellets for a 5-hour smoke. Yeah, that means that you struggling. Because I usually burn up probably not even a quarter of a bag for a 5-hour smoke, and that's at 250 degrees. I don't even burn up a quarter of a bag. This day, I was burning up pellets as quick as it was raining. Every time a drop hit the deck, a pellet went through the chute. Pow! I say, dang. So, so I don't know what pellet smoker you have by Traeger, but I'm gonna tell you, don't have just one and depend on that one only. That is not how it's gonna work. No, hell no. You better have a backup of something similar or a different brand, but don't get the same. When I say similar, you can have another Traeger, but if you want to use all 1,300 inches of the square space, you better make sure that temperature outside is perfect. Because if you go in there thinking that, oh, I know what I'm doing, I got it made, nothing is worse than moving meat from one smoker to another smoker in the middle of a smoke. Nothing is worse than that. But luckily, though, I don't have just one because I know things go wrong. I don't care what it is. If there's a moving part, things go wrong. Things break. And almost anything you buy these days got a moving part. Whether you got a car and you say, oh, it's an EV, it's got moving parts. The wheels move. So anything that's got moving part, you have to be careful. You have to get it right. But you're a smart person, will have a backup. If you don't have a backup, don't get mad if you screw your food up, especially smokers and stuff. And see, I'm the kind of person, my smoker should never give me a problem because I test all mine before I use it. And I don't mean the day of. I test them a couple days in advance to make sure they're ready to go on the day I want to use them. When I know I got a big smoke coming up, that early that week or a week in advance, I am testing little things out and all the major things. Because I'm going to make sure that before I buy the meat, I know what the meat's going to do, and I know what I'm going to do with the meat before I buy the meat. I'm not going to buy the meat and fill my refrigerator up with meat and then figure out it doesn't work. That's for those people, most of y'all, but that's for the idiots. I've seen that. I got friends do that. I have friends run out of pellets in the middle of a smoke. I don't know how that's possible. And then went to the store on the holiday, and the store do not have any more of those particular pellets or pellets at all. Yeah. Speaking of, I was reloading on pellets, and a guy asked me in the store, and we was talking about smokers, the ones he liked, and we was talking about Traegers, and he told me his Traeger didn't work properly. I said, why it doesn't work properly? He said, well, pellets are made of wood, and I just put some wood in there. I said, you put pellets in there or you put wood? He said, I put some firewood, but I cut it up real fine. And I just said, okay, now I know why you work at Lowe's. Because obviously you decided to bypass any education after 5th grade, because that's about the dumbest damn thing I've heard. He said, well, pellets are made of wood. Yeah, compressed, not freestanding wood like he did. But it just showed me a whole lot about why he's never going to own a real smoker. He said he had a Traeger. I know he was lying. I know he was trying something like a Rec-Tech. I know. Because people like that, they ain't got Traeger money. They never will have. They never will have it. And he's working in the back of Lowe's. Not the people driving the forklifts. Nah, he was just stacking light bulbs. And like half of them had already fallen on the floor because he's busy talking to me about his dreams that he's never going to be able to accomplish. But the fact is that at least he was curious. Now he knows the truth. But anyway, my Memorial Day cook was the day from hell because of my Timberline decided it needed a vacation, which it had been on vacation for about a month. But it decided it needed an extended vacation at my house. I would have preferred if it took an extended vacation somewhere else. So this is how my Memorial Day went. But as usual, I saved the day like Captain Blackback. I saved the day because I got backups. I got backups for backups. And so nobody can say anything about the food. As usual, it came out perfect. It just was a lot more work than I ever imagined, ever thought I would need. This is your boy DJ Leon D telling you, Memorial Day was a disaster at the beginning.